Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to Why Peatlands Matter for Food Security. I'm Jeremy Van Loon. I'm the team leader at C4, and I'll be moderating this session today. Thanks so much for joining us. We've got a very full session to get through, and we have a fantastic number of esteemed speakers. But before introducing everyone, I just want to get through a little bit of housekeeping. Most of you are watching through Whova, and Whova has a lot of documentation and some background that you can look at. So please take advantage of that, as well as the networking opportunities. If you want to listen to this session in French or Spanish, that option is available through Interactio. And the instructions for downloading that app and being able to hear the session in those languages is available on the GLF website. So take a look there. There's still some time before, a few minutes before we get into the session. And also just a reminder to keep the conversation going. This is a really important topic, and there's lots of great opportunities to continue to discuss this important topic. So as I mentioned, we have a very esteemed panel today from 4 continents spanning all of the major tropical peatland regions. Our discussion is going to be divided into 3 sections. First, we'll speak with community representatives about their experiencing living in and managing peatlands on the ground. And then we'll have a discussion with 2 scientists about peatlands and the research that they're doing. And finally, our last group, we're very lucky to have 4 senior representatives from governments in Peru, Indonesia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the Republic of Congo. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to introduce everybody here. I'll make some brief remarks at the beginning of each section just to let everyone know who is speaking. But if you would like to see their full bios, some very impressive bios there, you can read those on the GLF website or on the ITPC website at tropicalpeatlands.org. And with that, we are now going to show you a very brief video, and we'll be back shortly. Great. So that was just a little teaser to show you some scenes from different tropical peatlands. Just a little overview to frame the discussion. I mean, peatlands have historically been seen as wasteland areas and waiting for them to be converted into more productive uses, especially farming. But as we learn more and more about them, it's becoming clear that how their integrated ecosystem services are among the most valuable on the planet. And we've learned more about their role in carbon sequestration and providing important services, water and food production. But there's also this tension between climate and food production. We know from the estimates that there will be probably a population of 10 billion people by 2050, and we have some very aggressive climate goals if we're going to achieve, the 2-degree targets. So peatlands will play a very important role in this. Last year, the United Nations Environment Assembly adopted its first resolution on peatlands, which is going to help accelerate the protection and restoration of these ecosystems. And this in the work of the Global Peatlands Initiative, which was formed in 2016 to save peatlands as the world's largest terrestrial organic carbon stock, and the International Tropical Peatland Center and others are accelerating the understanding of peatland ecosystem change and promoting, importantly, South-South cooperation. So overall, there's a history all over the world of using drained peatlands for food and agriculture, but we're learning also that there's an evolving motto that if you need to use peatlands, use them wet. So with that, let's move to our discussion. And as I mentioned earlier, we have our first discussion group is a group of community representatives. We have from the village of Dompas on the Indonesian island of Sumatra, a group of farmers who have been involved in peatland restoration projects. And we have Rolsi, Nurwati, Mary Andanyani, and Zainab. And we're having some help with Dia Puspitaloka from C4. We also have from the Democratic Republic of Congo, Georgine Lumba Lobengo, and she's with the Pygmy Women's Association. And from the Republic of Congo, we have Gerard Bondeko, and he's the community coordinator for Wildlife Conservation Society's Lac Télé Community Reserve Project. So welcome to all of you. And to start us off, I was hoping that we could have the Dompas group start and explain very briefly. Tell us about your landscape. Tell us about the peatlands in your region. Over to you. Do we have the, there we go. There's the screen. Dompas group, do you want to start?
Posisi lahan gambut sebelumnya di daerah desa Dompas, ya cukup bagus sebelum hutan yang dirambah. Kami sebagai masyarakat semuanya bisa mencari untuk kehidupan di desa Dompas melalui hutan. Saat ini hutan sekarang udah nggak ada, jadi lahan gambutnya terlalu kering.
Great, and if we can have Dia just come in and help explain that.
The forests are very important, and especially peatlands in the Dompas area, but most of the forest has been encroached, and the community who has been making living from the peatlands has true struggles. And at this time, the forest is no longer pristine as it used to be, and especially the peatlands areas.
Great, thank you very much. Maybe we could go over to Georgine now. Georgine, can you tell us a little bit about the peatlands and the landscapes in your region? Over to you, Georgine. We may be having some difficulties on that front. We could also go to Gerard. Gerard, are you there? Can you tell us about the peatlands in your region? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Merci, mesdames et messieurs, les organisateurs de ce forum sur les tourbières tropicales. Mesdames et messieurs, nous vous remercions pour l'opportunité que vous nous offrez à parler des tourbières tropicales et particulièrement des tourbières du paysage Lac Télé. Je suis Monsieur Gérard Bondeko, comme vous l'avez présenté. J'interviens depuis la réserve communautaire du Lac Télé, dans la localité de Péna, qui est l'une des localités parmi les 27 que compte la réserve. Et que la réserve communautaire du Lac Télé, c'est une aire protégée qui est située au cœur même de la cuvette centrale du bassin du Congo. Elle est habitée par environ 18 000 personnes. En majorité, sont des communautés de l'ethnie Bomi-Taba, mais aussi elle est habitée par quelques membres de la communauté autochtone. Dans la réserve, il y a une importante densité de singes aussi. Sa superficie est occupée à 49% de forêts marécageuses, d'où travaille WCS en partenariat avec le gouvernement du Congo et les communautés locales pour assurer la conservation de l'intégrité écologique et assurer l'utilisation durable de la biodiversité de la zone. Merci.
Great, merci Gérard. Thank you very much. We'll try again with Georgine. Georgine, est-ce que vous êtes là? Est-ce que vous pouvez décrire les tourbières chez vous? Can you describe the peatland? Please go ahead.
Oui. Un espace de la taille des voyants unis, présent des pays Congo et RDC, sous des entendus marécageux ou d'hydro-marifères, à couche de turbins allant jusqu'à 3 mètres de profondeur, constituant un gigantesque puits de carbone. Il s'agit de la plus grande zone humide d'un seul tenant au monde. En RDC Congo, les tourbières sont présentes dans la 5 provinces: Maïndombe, Mongala, Sud-Ubangi, Chouapa et Équateur, avec une prédominance plus de 50% dans la province de l'Équateur, qui est enroncée par 4 grands bassins hydrographiques: Dilonga, Ubangi, Ikelemba et Rouk. Un puits de carbone de 30 GT de CO2 contre 23,3 GT de CO2 pour la forêt. Estimation LIDAR dont la cartographie précise et en fait.
Great. Thank you very much, Georgine. Very helpful. Merci. I'd like to now ask
Merci.
I'd like to ask the group a little bit about the food that's available and commonly harvested in the peatlands in your area. So if we could go to Dompas and hear very briefly what food is available. Dompas?
Makanan yang bisa ditanam di lahan gambut yaitu
Georgine, maybe if you could mute your mic, that's great. Dompas, go ahead.
ubi jalar, pupuk tanpa apa kan orang dulu cocok tanam. Jadi sekarang ini kami pengen lagi suasana yang kayak gitu. Kalau bisa pemerintah dalam negeri maupun luar negeri membantu untuk bercocok tanam kayak gitu dulu lagi. Itu yang kami rindukan sekarang nih, Bu.
Thank you. And Dia, can you share with us in English?
So there used to be a lot of food that can be planted on the peatland and also at the forest. For example, cassava, sweet potato, but since there are drought, it's very difficult to plant like that again. They are used to also plant and cultivate vegetables in the earlier time, but it's not possible right now. So they expect the government will help in cultivating programs.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Maybe we can go now to Gérard. Gérard, can you tell us a little bit about the food in your area, in the peatlands there? La nourriture et ce qu'on peut manger là-bas, chez vous.
Merci. Je vais très rapidement vous présenter la diversité des aliments que l'on trouve dans les tourbières du paysage lac Télé. Il y a du poisson qui est trouvé à partir de la pêche. Il y a la viande d'animaux sauvages qui est obtenue à partir de la chasse. Il y a les produits forestiers non ligneux du genre miel, les fruits et noisettes sauvages qui font partie des activités de cueillette. Ici, comme vous le voyez, il y a également les larves dont les chenilles et les larves d'anetons. Il y a également de la viande domestique qui est obtenue à partir d'un élevage à petite échelle autour des villages. Voici cette diversité d'aliments qui sont souvent récoltés et disponibles dans le paysage lac Télé. Merci.
Thank you very much, Gérard. C'est une grande diversité de nourriture. Merci. Thanks. Let's move on to Georgine. Georgine, est-ce que vous pouvez montrer ce qu'on mange des tourbières chez vous? Can you tell us what food's available? The floor is yours.
Pour nous les PA, les zones forestières en tourbière sont un supermarché. Nous récoltons tout ce que nous avons besoin, comme aliments ou boissons, à commencer par l'eau. Source de vie, il y a aussi des fruits sauvages avec haute teneur à vitamines et protéines qui entretiennent notre santé. Nous récoltons des légumes, du miel, des racines, graines et feuilles qui nous servent de condiments, mais aussi du gibier et du boisson pour notre subsistance à priorité. Tout cela est aujourd'hui devenu rare avec des exploitations concertières des marchés avec les Bantous.
Great. Thank you very much. Merci. So I want us to go back to Gérard. And Gérard, you told us a little bit about the food that was available in your community. How important are these foods? Quelle est l'importance des aliments dérivés des tourbières? Gérard, over to you.
Merci pour cette question. Pour nous, communauté du paysage lac Télé, les aliments issus des tourbières sont d'une importance capitale pour nous parce qu'ils assurent notre sécurité alimentaire avec la présence de l'eau dans les tourbières. Donc, cette présence de l'eau régule le cycle des eaux au niveau des rivières. Et les tourbières favorisent également la production de diverses espèces d'animaux et de poissons qui sont sources de protéines animales pour les communautés. Il y a également, les tourbières favorisent également la production des produits forestiers non ligneux. J'avais cité entre-temps les noisettes, le miel, et les tourbières sont également d'une importance parce qu'ils favorisent la fertilisation des sols pour nos cultures agricoles. Aussi, elles sont d'une importance capitale pour nous dans la production des plantes qui servent à la fois comme aliment pour les bêtes et dans la pharmacopée traditionnelle en vue du traitement de certaines maladies des personnes. Merci.
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. It's great to hear. I'd like to just move quickly over to the Dompas community. As part of a research project, there were 10,000 pineapples that were planted on formerly degraded peatland. And I was curious to know if you could tell us, why were the pineapples chosen? How have they turned out? And were they a good choice in restoring the peatlands there? Dompas, over to you. Do we have Dompas available? Maybe there's a bit of a lag there. We can always go over to... Let's hear from Georgine very briefly. Georgine, est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire l'importance des tourbières pour l'alimentation chez vous?
Oui. Étant que nous avons historiquement vécu de la cueillette, pêche et chasse en forêt qui, dans le contexte de notre province, sont circonscrites en majorité dans les zones de tourbières. La rareté de ces aliments et l'émancipation obligée nous ont poussé à la sédentarisation, nous condamnant de faire à adopter le mode de vie de Bantou, majoritaire, sans droit de propriété sur les terres où nous vivons. Nous sommes plus enculturés par cette adoption et en même temps, les ressources se font de plus en plus rares. Merci.
Thank you very much. Merci, Georgine. Thank you so much. I'm wondering, is the Dompas group available to talk about the pineapple plantation? And or Dia, you could also just summarize what they were going to say if they're not available.
Hi, Jeremy. The that being planted is agroforestry pineapple is a part of the CBFPR business models that is developed by C4 and University of Rio. We work alongside with the local community, and I would like to hand it to them to answer these questions further.
Over to you, Dompas. Silakan.
Yeah.
Karena Dompas memilih untuk menanam nanas karena penanamannya mudah, bisa di lahan kering dan hujan, dan pemasarannya juga gampang. Sisa buah yang dipanen bisa kita olah menjadi dodol dan selai.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Dia, could you explain?
They choose to plant pineapple because it's very easy to cultivate, and also for being marketed, it's also easy to be harvested. And once it's harvested, it can be processed into a sweet jam.
Fantastic. Oh, that's great. Okay. Let's move on to the next question. I was hoping to get a brief description of how your communities manage peatlands. And if we could start with Gérard, that would be great. Over to you, Gérard.
Merci. La communauté du paysage lac Télé gère les tourbières suivant le modèle coutumier. Dans notre communauté, donc, l'accès et l'exploitation des ressources naturelles dans les tourbières se font suivant les terroirs de pêche, de chasse, de collecte de produits forestiers non ligneux, de production artisanale et agricole de chaque village. Ces terroirs sont placés sous l'autorité des chefs coutumiers, qui sont les garants du suivi et du contrôle de l'exploitation des ressources naturelles, donc à l'intérieur de ces terroirs. Et ces derniers ont le pouvoir d'accorder ou de refuser à quiconque le droit d'exploiter les ressources à l'intérieur d'un terroir villageois donné. Aujourd'hui, avec l'ouverture, les rapports marchands, ce pouvoir des chefs coutumiers s'est avéré affaibli. Aussi, les droits fonciers ne sont plus suffisamment respectés et appliqués. Aussi, les produits locaux qui viennent des activités des communautés ne sont pas suffisamment valorisés. Et pour le cas du lac Télé, qui est une zone tellement isolée, les capacités d'innovation sont faibles. Voilà brièvement ce que je puis dire de ce que les tourbières, de quelle manière les tourbières sont gérées dans le paysage lac Télé. Merci.
Merci. Thank you, Gérard. That's very, very interesting. I just wanted to make a note to the audience because we have so much translation going on, just to remind you that there is a translation app available, which is working quite well, but you do have to download it. It's called Interactio, INTERACTIO, and you can find that in the Apple Store or Google Play, and you download that onto your phone. And then just enter the code GLF Bonn 2020. So capital GLF, capital Bonn, or capital B, ONN 2020, 2020. And then that will allow you to listen to the entire session in French or Spanish. So I hope everyone gets a chance to download that and enjoy the translations. So we'll just move quickly to the next question. So in the interest of time, I think we'll move to one more question before we shift over to our next group. And I'd like to ask everyone if they have a message to policymakers in their region. What would be helpful for policy around peatlands to make your lives better in your region? So maybe we can start with the Dompas group. Dompas, could you share with us any thoughts you have on that? Over to you. Silakan Dompas. Dompas, are you there?
Yeah, kembali Bu.
There you are. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Harapan kami Desa Dompas ya akan datangnya bisa lagi mengembangkan desa kami, buat contoh teladan bagi desa-desa lain, akan datangnya bisa untuk membantu ekonomi masyarakat. Macam mana caranya bisa kami melanjutkan Desa Dompas ini yang baik, lebih baik lagi untuk masyarakatnya, Bu. Itu.
Terima kasih. Dia, if you could explain to us.
So we hope that we can develop our village, continue to develop it, and be the example for the other communities. We hope to improve the economy as well as the welfare of our people.
Great, thank you so much. Very, very good message. Gérard, over to you if you can share any messages for policymakers. Go ahead.
Pardon?
Est-ce que vous avez des messages pour les décideurs politiques chez vous?
Merci de la question. Effectivement, nous avons un message que nous pouvons adresser aux décideurs politiques. Ce message, c'est celui-ci, que la communauté du paysage lac Télé, par ma modeste voix, soutient la conservation de l'écosystème de tourbières, car cet écosystème est d'une importance capitale pour nous parce qu'il nous approvisionne une alimentation durable et il assure le bien-être des générations actuelles et celles des générations futures. C'est le message que nous pouvons adresser et notre souhait est de faire que les décideurs politiques regardent avec plus de sérieux, avec plus d'intérêt, la nécessité de conserver les tourbières, parce que conserver les tourbières, pour nous, c'est assurer notre survie. Merci.
Merci, Gérard. Thank you very much. And now I'd just like to ask Georgine this final question as well. What are the messages you have for policymakers? Georgine, quel message envoyez-vous aux décideurs politiques respectant des tourbières chez vous?
Merci. La gestion des tourbières doit être vue sous l'angle de la lutte contre la pauvreté des communautés qui vivent. Pour les cas spécifiques, les populations autochtones, une attention particulière doit être portée sur leur participation effective, la reconnaissance de leurs droits et la prise à compte de leur savoir traditionnel, car elles ont beaucoup à donner. Outre cette participation, les pays voudraient également disposer, comme les communautés bantoues, des espaces qui peuvent gérer pour les bénéfices. Il faut aussi donner aux pays cette opportunité de mettre leur en vie lors de la formulation des politiques et des stratégies pour la préservation des tourbières. Nous voulons aussi que la FAO et les autres partenaires augmentent significativement les moyens dans les projets, quand dans les projets actuels, nous n'avons pas assez de moyens pour couvrir tous nos
Not sure if we've Georgine may have frozen. We'll probably.
Tous nos besoins en matière.
Sorry, Georgine, you froze for a little bit, but were you finished? Est-ce qu'il y a encore des choses à dire? Yeah, it looks like we may be having some challenges with the internet there. So merci, Georgine. We'll move on. And I'd like to just thank the community representatives. We've run out of the first section of the 3 sections, and we're going to move on to the researchers. So if the community representatives could just stay there, and we'll circle back at the end for the questions, and we're going to move on to our 2 researchers. And I'd just like to briefly introduce Susan Page, who's a professor of geography at Leicester University in the UK. And we have Zulaili Isnaini Habib, who's a lecturer of anthropology at the University of Riau in Indonesia. And I'd like to start with Susan first and ask the question, this one, peatlands seem like a very difficult environment for food and agriculture in general. And I'm curious to know, and the audience would probably like to know, how do they compare ecologically to dry mineral soils, and what are the challenges? Sue, over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you. So yes, indeed, most tropical peatlands are rain-fed systems when they form. So this means that in their natural state, they have a very high water table, but they're also acidic and they're very low in available plant nutrients. So if we want to convert these essentially wetland systems into a dry land that's suitable for growing a typical range of dry land crops, then we have to do various things. First of all, usually the forest will have to be removed, so natural vegetation cover taken away, install a drainage system because we need to lower the water table so that our crops, crop root systems have a favourable environment for growth and survival. And then we probably have to apply soil amendments as well, because we're looking at a system that's naturally poor in nutrients, quite acid. So we may be looking at having to apply fertilizers and also probably lime to decrease the acidity of the soil. So the conversion of peatlands, as opposed to the conversion of perhaps other types of ecosystems to agriculture, can bring with it some short-term benefits in terms of economics, but it may lead to much longer-term environmental disbenefits. One of the biggest concerns is, of course, that as soon as we drain that peat, which is full of all that organic material from the plants, then we end up with high greenhouse gas emissions to the atmosphere. And of course, that could be exacerbated if we then also apply fertilizers, because not only are we going to get carbon dioxide emissions, we're probably also going to get nitrous oxide emissions as well, which is another very powerful greenhouse gas. And in addition, for farmers, maintaining, although I've said these are wetland systems and we need to drain them, in fact, some of the areas where we have tropical peatlands under agricultural use do experience a dry season, may even experience from time to time an extended dry season, drought. And actually under those conditions, then water availability in peatlands does become quite a big issue. So at one time of the year, you might have an excess of water. At other times of the year, farmers are having to deal with a lack of water. And I suppose the other 2 key things that I'd just like to stress are the problems that you may experience as your peat starts to disappear, starts to decompose. You may end up exposing underlying materials that are even more difficult to farm. And of course, the loss of peat itself is land subsidence. And during the wet season and for low-lying land, that may mean that there's an increased risk of flooding and damage to crops as well.
Great. Thanks very much, Sue. Very great insights there. I'd like to go to Zuli now and just get your thoughts, Zuli, on how peatlands' carbon storage functions can be balanced with food production. Over to you, Zuli. You may have to unmute yourself. There we go. Okay. And if we could see if you can turn your camera on too, that would be great.
Okay. But it is difficult for me to using camera.
Okay. Then,
okay.
Then go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, discussion about the peatland area, often talking about their physical function, such as in carbon storage and water storage. But I would like to invite you to go to beyond carbon and water. So I mentioned in the Rio province in Sumatra, which has around 4 million hectares of peatland, and it has about 4 large rivers as well as 1,000 small rivers, most which running through peatland areas. So I just want to explore the relationship between local community and fish resources in this province. And more specific, how about the fish resources in peatland area support for security? Hello?
Yep, we're here. It's great.
Yeah, but with a question, how can peatland carbon storage function be balanced with food production? Of course, to preserve the carbon storage in peatland must be kept as wetland. And then the principle could be made in line with the protection of fish habitats, and so that fish production for food and livelihood could continue in peatland area.
That's great. And actually, Zuli, now that you mentioned fish production, you've done a lot of research on fish production, and it would be great to hear a little bit more about the role that they play in livelihoods. We know that fish is obviously a very important source of protein, and also that there's a long history of using peatlands in that part of the world where you've been doing your research in Indonesia as kind of an extension of the ocean. So what are the traditional approaches to fishing in peatlands in this culture?
Yeah, well, from the slide, the map shows there the information and the data about fish resource and fish resources utilized by local communities from 5 areas in Rio province. And then the major fish sources from the lakes, swamp, rivers, and the canals. And the number of the fishermen in peatland village demonstrates very small portion of the local population. And the fishermen are using different methods to get fish, and almost of them are using the traditional technology and also environment-friendly gears.
That's great. Very important part of the food production system there. Thank you. We'll just move back to Susan now, and I was wondering if you could share with us some insights into polluticulture, or otherwise known as the growing of food in areas with high water tables, like peatlands, obviously, how it works, and what are the ecological conditions required?
Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Well, if we want to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from drained peatlands, which is one of the biggest disadvantages of agriculture on peatland, then one of the options really is to raise the water table. And instead of growing a range of dryland crops, to grow a range of wetland crops. And this type of wet agriculture is sometimes referred to as polluticulture. Now, most of the crops that are currently being grown on peatland in Southeast Asia are not wetland crops, they're dryland crops. And most of those crops, therefore, are very poorly adapted to high water table conditions. But there have been a number of studies recently that have identified potential crops that could be grown at high water table. Some of those are actually native to the peat swamp forests, so native species, well adapted to the typical conditions that you would find in a wet peatland environment. The problem is that whilst we've identified some potential species, some potential crop species, some of which could be food crops, none of these have yet really been grown at any kind of scale. So the economics of growing these crops, in particular the market development that would be needed to bring those crops to market is really not there yet. So that's quite a big step that still needs to be taken. But there is potential there. My concern is that these crops, of course, need to sustain livelihoods, because as is clear from what has probably already been said in this session, many of these peatlands, particularly in Southeast Asia, are now quite heavily populated. So we have to look for options that can still maintain livelihoods, still maintain some level of food security. And of course, some of these crops may have problems associated with them. For example, will they grow without fertilizer addition? And if we need to add fertilizers, what will be the impact of that on greenhouse gas emissions? Will we still be able to reduce emissions even at high water levels? I think the way forward is likely to be a combination of a range of strategies. So the types of aquaculture that Ibu Zuli has just been talking about, maybe that combined with agroforestry and also probably forest restoration. So looking at alternatives for livelihood, but ones that really also allow us to bring the water table back closer to the peatland surface.
Great, that's really insightful. Thanks, Sue. I just want to jump to a question that was a little bit further along in our list, but I'd like to hear both of your thoughts, and we can start with Zuli. There's a lot of effort these days from organizations from the ITPC and GPI and national governments in Indonesia and elsewhere on restoring and re-wetting peatlands. Obviously, this is an important step in maintaining their functions, as you mentioned, Sue. How is this done in practice, and how does it differ from restoring other terrestrial ecosystems? And maybe Zuli, if you could start, and then we can have Sue provide her insights as well.
Excuse me, it is not working, the sound?
Oh, no, it sounds good. We can hear you. We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you, Zuli. Please go ahead.
I can hear you. Sorry.
Oh,
Can you repeat your question? Sorry.
Of course, of course. The question is about the importance of restoring and re-wetting peatlands, and how is this done in practice, and how does it differ from restoring other ecosystems, other terrestrial ecosystems?
Well, it is about the emerging field or study related. No?
Yeah, I think I mean in Indonesia, for example, there's lots of initiatives to re-wet peatlands across the country, from Kalimantan to Sumatra as well. And I was just curious, how is that process? How does it actually happen? What are some of the techniques that are used, and is it a lot more challenging than restoring a forest, for example, in a mountain setting?
Well, actually, in Indonesia has already peatland restoration has become mandatory, and there should also be opportunity to restore and improve the manage of its resources. And then, unlike the case of other freshwater system in non-peatland area, we now realize that we don't have much knowledge about such management. So I think it is the opportunity for the researcher and for the people who know about the management to restore about the fish to give the knowledge and give the practice to the community in peatland area.
Okay.
And yeah.
Oh, please go ahead. Sorry.
And in the case of Riau, there are some customary regulation related with the management of fish resources in non-peatland rivers and lake, but there are management of fish resources in non-peatland rivers and lake, but there are apparently no similar regulation in extinct in peatland water. So that's why sound management of fish resources in peatland area deserve studies.
Okay, great. Thank you for the insights. That's great. Sue, if we could go over to you for that question, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think as Ibuzuli has really hinted there, I think we're at a very early stage of understanding, you know, how successful we can be in actually restoring these peatland ecosystems in the tropics. It's difficult because we're trying to balance different components. We have to restore the peatland hydrology. We have to get that back to functioning something like a natural peatland system. So usually that involves blocking of or partial blocking of drainage channels. We have to try to restore the natural vegetation cover, so the peat swamp forests, and the various challenges associated with that, because especially for some of the heavily degraded peatlands, these are very, very harsh environments for establishing tree seedlings. And not all trees, not all peat swamp forest trees will be appropriate for that early stage of restoration. And then fire control. Of course, many of these peatlands in Southeast Asia are now impacted by regular fires. So fire control has also to be part of the restoration strategy. And then I think finally people, of course, because as I mentioned earlier, and as Ibuzuli has hinted, so many communities are now living in or around these peatlands. So we really, really have to take account of human requirements, of local, local communities, their livelihood requirements. So peatland restoration requires a very holistic consideration, not just ecological components of ecosystem restoration, but absolutely vital is the social components as well.
Fantastic. That's really great insight, and I think those points you made, about the opportunities are really germane, and will sort of help transition to our next group that we're going to move to now, which are the policymakers. So thanks to Susan and Zuli, and if you can just stay with us, then we'll circle back when we take a look at the questions at the end of the session. So I'll just move on now to our esteemed group of policymakers from around the world. And we're very lucky to have 4 really accomplished and senior gentlemen with us. Mr. Alu Dohong, who's the Vice Minister at the Ministry of Environment and Forestry for the Republic of Indonesia. We have Roshirma Mapasi Mumpasi, Director General of Sustainable Development at the Ministry of Tourism and Environment in the Republic of Congo. We have Gabriel Quihandria Acosta, the Deputy Minister of Strategic Development of Natural Resources in the Ministry of Environment in Peru. And we have Jean-Jacques Bambuta at the Democratic Republic of Congo, National Coordinator and Focal Point of Peatlands. So thank you all very much for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you with us. You've already heard a lot of input from our scientists and our community leaders. I was hoping all of you could start, and maybe I'll start with Pa Alu, to briefly describe the extent and conditions of the peatlands in your country. Over to you, Pa Alu.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good evening in Indonesia in particular. So I'm happy to be here to share, perspective from the government of Indonesia. If we talk about peatland in Indonesia, the recent data show that our peatland is around 13 million hectares at that moment. This number is slightly lower compared to previous one, 14.9 million hectares. Because of 2 reasons. First of all, the improved methodology to map out this peatland, and the secondly is the substantial increasing number of ground truthing to check it out on the ground. So at the moment, we for the recent data, the 2019, we come up with 13.4 million hectares of our peatland, and around 31.2% out of these considered as a very deep peat, very deep peat, so meaning over than 3 meters deep, and remaining of it considered as shallow peat or below 3 meters deep. And this peatland actually distributed in a very 3 major big islands in Indonesia: Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Papua, with more than almost 6 million hectares actually located in Sumatra, and then 4.5 million hectares in Kalimantan, and 3 million hectares in Papua. And this peatland belong to 865 hydrological units, in these 3 big islands. Currently, about 50% or 55% of this peatland already converted into other land uses, and the remaining of it still considered as conservation, protection, and primary peat swamp forest areas. And Indonesia is also very rich in terms of not only peatland but also biodiversity that exists within this peat swamp ecosystem, like orangutan, tigers, elephants, and proboscis monkey, and any kind of wildlife that really only exists in peat swamp ecosystem. We can't find it in other ecosystem type, like in the upland ecosystem type. So from economic perspective, from ecological perspective, from social, economical, from educational and research perspective, this ecosystem is very important for Indonesia.
Great. Thank you very much, Pak Alu. Let's jump across the Pacific Ocean to South America and Peru, and hear from Gabriel. Gabriel, over to you, please.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, the organizers, for the invitation to share with you the experience of Peru in handling and managing, trying to manage sustainably its peatlands. What are we talking about peatlands when in the case of Peru? We're talking about 5.5 million hectares of tropical peatlands that happen in the lowlands of our Amazon basin, mostly concentrated in 2 areas, in a big protected area that is the experience I will talk about forward, and in a big Ramsar area that has been recognized, and it's the biggest wetland we have in the country. We have as well some important peatlands happening in the highlands, in the high altitude highlands in the Andes, where they have a fundamental role in terms of the water cycle and in the production of fodder for peasants that live in the highland areas, and they even provide water for big cities such as Lima, because we don't have some sources or big sources of water flowing to the Pacific Ocean, and we depend on what happens in these peatlands and these wetlands in the high Andes. I leave it here, and then I can come back and describe more on this issue.
That's great. Thanks, Gabriel. Thanks very much. Let's go over to Jean-Jacques in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Jean-Jacques, if you can share with us some of the description of the peatlands there. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy, for inviting DRC to share our experience in peatland management. I'm Jean-Jacques Bambuta, the National Coordinator of Peatland in DRC. I'm working for the Ministry of Environment. So, as you know, some activities like fishing, family agriculture, and logging are practices that are practiced on the peatland area. So the problem for the government is how can we reduce pressure on the peatland area? Then, for the next 5 years, DRC is looking forward to implement a peatland roadmap through 3 questions. The first is, where are peatlands in DRC? The second is, what can we do with this peatland in terms of carbon? And the third question is, what opportunity can DRC attend to by conserving peatland? Then for the next 5 years, we are going to implement our roadmap with some important activity like peatland mapping, because someone was telling us that in DRC we have peatland only in 5 provinces. For us, to the side of the government, it is important to make a good mapping of peatland in DRC. Then also, apart from mapping, we need some multi-cultural activities like multi-studies in peatland, because at this level, we don't know which kind of knowledge that can be attached to peatland conservation. And the third activity of our roadmap is, how can we develop some activities in peatland area that will reduce pressure to this ecosystem? All those activities need a national or a strong national policy. That's what we would like to do. But at last, for DRC, the problem is that how can we conserve peatland not only for nature, but also for people? As government, we are looking forward to understand what kind of opportunities can peatland bring to the DRC. So, Jeremy, at this level, I think this is what I can share with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jean-Jacques. And then we'll go to Roche. Roche, est-ce que vous pouvez décrire brièvement l'étendue et l'état des tourbières dans votre pays, la République du Congo?
Allô, vous m'entendez là?
Oui, voilà.
D'accord, merci. Donc, je suis donc Jean-Marc Passi-Moupassi, directeur général de développement durable de la République du Congo. La question relative à l'étendue des tourbières, il faut savoir que les tourbières, on parle ici des tourbières de ce qu'on appelle de la cuvette centrale du bassin du Congo. Donc, ces tourbières s'étendent de la République du Congo à la République démocratique du Congo. En un seul bassin. Donc, ça va de la République du Congo à la République démocratique du Congo. Et sur les 2 pays, c'est à peu près 145 500 km². Et nos amis de la RDC, détiennent les 2 tiers de ces tourbières. Et nous, la République du Congo, nous avons donc le tiers qui fait à peu près 48 500 km². Et comme l'a dit tout à l'heure notre ami de WCS, il faut savoir que nos tourbières à nous, elles ont été mises en évidence, bien sûr, avec l'étude du professeur Simon Lewis en 2017, mais ce sont des tourbières qui sont heureusement déjà situées dans ce que je pourrais appeler une aire protégée. Donc, nos tourbières ont eu la chance d'être situées déjà dans une... Cette zone avait déjà été constituée en aire protégée. Et à l'époque, bien sûr, nous ne savions pas que cette étendue regorgeait de tourbières. Et donc, quand on a découvert qu'il y avait des tourbières, elles sont heureusement tombées sur une zone aire protégée déjà. Et donc, comme l'a dit tout à l'heure mon ami de WCS, M. Gérard, c'est une zone relativement peu habitée. On a parlé de 18 000 personnes. C'est une zone relativement peu habitée. Et il faut reconnaître que c'est une zone relativement hostile et d'accès difficile. Donc, de manière naturelle, nous ne sommes pas à ce jour confrontés à un défi de restauration. Notre défi, c'est plutôt comment conserver ce qui est encore intact. Parce qu'il faut dire aussi que nos tourbières sont relativement intactes. Elles ont été très peu impactées par l'homme et par les activités anthropiques. Donc, nous sommes confrontés à un défi de conservation et de préservation. Et donc, nous avons eu très tôt conscience de cette bombe écologique que notre tourbière regorge, parce qu'il ne faut pas qu'on oublie que ces tourbières séquestrent à peu près 30 milliards de tonnes de carbone sur les deux pays. 30 milliards de tonnes de carbone, d'après les études du professeur Simon Lewis. Et actuellement, le professeur Simon Lewis est revenu sur le Congo pour continuer à finaliser, à peaufiner ses études, notamment la cartographie exacte de ces tourbières. C'est le travail qu'il fait en ce moment avec l'appui de l'université de Leeds, mais aussi il veut évaluer exactement quelle est la quantité de carbone qui est séquestrée dans nos tourbières. Quelle est la quantité exacte? Aujourd'hui, l'évaluation est à peu près 30 milliards de tonnes de carbone sur la RDC et la République du Congo. Donc, nous sommes confrontés à un défi de conservation et de préservation et nous avons déjà commencé avec nos partenaires à déployer des projets. Tout à l'heure, j'ai suivi notre ami de WCS qui disait que pour eux, pour les communautés, il faut que l'État aide à la préservation et à la conservation de ces tourbières. Effectivement, l'État s'y attelle. Le Congo a très tôt pris conscience de cette problématique. Nous avons organisé ici la 3e réunion des partenaires de l'initiative mondiale pour les tourbières avec la RDC, l'Indonésie. Nous avons signé à l'issue de cette réunion ce qu'on appelle la déclaration de Brazzaville, qui engage les 3 pays à se soutenir et à s'appuyer dans le cadre de la gestion de ces tourbières. Nous voulons profiter de l'expérience de l'Indonésie, qui, elle, a eu un peu une démarche dans le passé, qui a peut-être participé à la dégradation des tourbières. Donc, nous voulons nous appuyer sur l'exemple de l'Indonésie pour ne pas faire les mêmes erreurs, certainement, et pour préserver ce capital important, pour nous-mêmes, c'est vrai, pour nos communautés aussi, mais aussi pour toute la planète.
OK. Merci, Roche. C'est vraiment une grande quantité de carbone chez vous. Merci, c'était très intéressant. I'm going to move over back to Jean-Jacques and then eventually Gabrielle. I was hoping to know more about the most effective policies for protecting peatlands. What have you used in the DRC, and then we'll go over to Peru after that. Over to you, Jean-Jacques.
Okay, as I was saying, the most effective policy of peatland conservation for DRC will be the policy that will bring opportunity to the local communities, opportunities to the local communities and indigenous people. So we are looking for policy that will reduce poverty, because this is why local communities and indigenous people are making activity on the peatland area. So what I would like also to add is this: we have been talking for peatland in DRC since 2 years, let's say. So we are not very far. This is why we are looking for policies, opportunities, good experience like what Indonesia have done. So this is what I can say at this level.
Great. Thanks so much, Jean-Jacques. Very nice. Gabrielle, how about in Peru? What have been the most effective policies to protect peatlands?
I may differentiate two stages, 2 phases. The first one being around the establishment of protected areas, such as the Pacaya-Samiria National Reserve, or the establishment of the Abanico del Pastaza Ramsar area that we presented to Ramsar and was approved, that were in the logic of establishing a protected area or some area-based management areas. And a second phase that it's characterized by the promotion of the sustainable use of the resources happening in this area. What the experience we are showing here in the Pacaya-Samiria National Reserve takes advantage of the possibility that the National Reserve allows for the use of natural resources for local communities. So these palm swamps that happen there, where the dominant species is aguaje, or this Mauritia flexuosa species, are being used for the production of uses. Look, they have been used historically for many uses, but right now we have been able to incorporate the corporate sector as part of as a partner in this in a partnership with communities in order to produce this income and this direct benefits for local population, as Jean-Jacques was explaining for the case of DRC. What we are trying to seek is to as you said when you started the webinar, is use them wet, use these peatlands with the water they have there. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gabriel. That's great. I want to go over to Pa Alu, and Pa Alu, when we were talking yesterday about the overall conditions that we're seeing in the world, the geopolitical climate and the climate challenges and other trends and COVID-19, how is this going to change land use and food security in Indonesia? And then I'll ask Rosh the same question afterward. But Pa Alu, if you could start off with that one.
Right, thank you, Jeremy. Yes, we just, not only Indonesia, but globally just experienced this COVID-19, right? And this pandemic, of course, just as I mentioned yesterday, changing all this kind of landscape of the economic as well as environmental issues. Currently, most countries in the world try to secure their own, food system, secure their own commodities in order, to cope with this kind of pandemic, because we don't know how this pandemic gonna end, but we have to prepare ourselves to sustain our commodities. So there are two implications of this pandemic. First of all, as I mentioned, tends to be a deglobalization. Tend to every country, try to apply this what we call it inward-looking policy in terms of producing food, in terms of supplying food for their own domestic purposes. The second thing, if we not control this, probably also can have implication to the natural resources. In this case, probably also peatland. So, government of Indonesia tried to do this in the very wise and very high, what we call it, to see this in a broader perspective. Not only try to maximize our food production, but also try to still, to look after our environments, to sustain our environment. So I think, we recognize the impact of this COVID-19 can be also positive, can be also negative to the landscape of the environment issues. But we believe that government of Indonesia tried to consider this in the very careful way, to address that. And we try to, of course, to produce, food needs for the communities, for the nation, whilst with, maximize the existing resources, but still considering, the sustainability issues have to put in place, to do this. So yeah, I think this COVID pandemic can be positive also if we manage it carefully, but also can be negative if we not manage it carefully. But I think Indonesia in the right track to anticipate that issues. So we still, you know, I think with current patch of you know, try to balance between developments as well as protection of the environment, in particular peatland.
Great. Thank you very much, Alu. You know, I think just in the interest of time, because we're getting very close to the end already, maybe I'll ask the next question as well. If everyone on the panel can just, well, all the policymakers, the four of you, can just address this question of the art of policymaking and how policymakers translate science and research of peatlands into practical applications on the ground. And while we still have you, Pa Alu, why don't you answer that question very briefly, and then I'll move on to the other three.
All right. I mean, in terms of environmental policy, especially related with peatland protection and utilization policy, I think Indonesia is, you know, growing very fast and quite sophisticated in terms of policy. And we do adopted all these kind of scientific advices. For example, through the government regulation 57/2016 regarding peatland management and protection, we heard about the advice from the scientific communities that we need to maintain the water table. So that's why in the regulation we put, you know, in the cultivation area, we have to keep the water table as maximum or as minimum 40 centimeter below the pitch surface. While in the conservation areas, we try to, you know, to keep as high as possible of water table, particularly in the peat dome areas as a resource of water. And also, you know, several technical regulation, you know, enacted by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, try to guide all this kind of restoration, try to guide how to implement this kind of technical, you know, water table monitoring within the concession and so on. So I think we are since 2017 or 16, you know, even since 2015, try to, you know, to improve our policy. And I think we can share all this kind of policy to other countries like DRC, Republic of Congo, Peru, you know. We realized that all this, you know, still, you know, under developing. So we learning by doing is very important, but we have those kind of, I think, practical policy that we develop from the scientific information background. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pa Alu. I'll move over to Roche now, and avec la question, comment traduire la science et la recherche des tourbières en application pratique sur le terrain et en ce qui concerne la politique. Roche, à vous.
Merci. En fait, nous avons l'opportunité actuellement, je l'ai dit tout à l'heure, d'avoir encore le professeur Simon Lewis sur le terrain dans un projet qu'on appelle Congo Peat 2. Et ce projet, actuellement, il travaille, je l'ai dit, à la cartographie des tourbières, à une connaissance plus approfondie des quantités de carbone séquestrées. Ils sont en train d'étudier également la faune et la flore endémique de cette zone. Donc, vraiment, nous aurons, à l'issue de leur étude, une masse d'informations scientifiques qui, justement, vont servir pour nous. Je vais vous dire quelque chose. Nous avons reçu le professeur Samuel Lewis au bureau, au cabinet, il y a quelques semaines, il y a quelques mois, et il nous a fait une révélation. Il nous a dit ceci, que les tourbières de la partie congolaise, donc du lac Télé, en fait, ils sont issus de la pluviométrie. Ils sont issus et maintenus par la pluviométrie. Donc, il nous a expliqué que si seulement si nous développons une politique d'exploitation forestière qui n'est pas raisonnable sur zone, cela va avoir un impact sur la pluviométrie et donc nos rivières cesseront d'être irriguées. Voilà. Et donc, ils vont s'assécher certainement, peut-être brûler. Et donc, c'est ce type d'informations qui servent justement aux politiques pour justement mettre en place des politiques qui soient appropriées sur zone. Déjà, donc, nous sommes désormais conscients que nous ne devons pas permettre une trop grande exploitation forestière dans cette zone, même dans sa périphérie. Et je pense que pour nous, il y a l'ami de la RDC qui l'a dit, il ne s'agit pas de conserver ou conserver, il faut conserver et valoriser. Et donc, nous avons actuellement entamé un projet de près de 6 millions de dollars avec le PNUE. Et nous voulons, c'est un projet de conservation intégrée des tourbières où nous mettons en même temps, nous mettons comme partie prenante dans le projet les communautés locales et populations autochtones, le secteur privé. Et donc, nous voulons les impliquer pour que, avec tous le secteur privé, c'est tant les exploitants forestiers, c'est en même temps ceux qui développent l'agro-industrie dans la périphérie de cette zone. Et donc, nous sommes en train de les impliquer dans une démarche de développement durable en tenant compte de certaines normes RSE, etc., pour que justement leurs activités n'impactent pas sur les tourbières. Mais au-delà de cela, nous voulons aussi valoriser ces tourbières par le développement d'un écotourisme qui serait source de revenus pour les populations. Parce que la conservation, à un certain moment, a beaucoup de règles qui empêchent les populations d'accéder à des ressources qui sont pourtant qui sont parfois à leur portée. Et comme nous voulons changer les pratiques, nous sommes obligés de trouver des activités alternatives qui puissent leur permettre d'engranger des revenus. Et cela, nous sommes obligés donc de développer des projets pour que nous puissions justement... Parce que même s'il n'y a qu'actuellement 18 000 personnes dans cette zone-là, dites-vous bien, notre ami de WCS vous a montré les photos, il y a une chasse. Il y a une chasse qui se fait de manière outrancière parce que le gibier que vous avez vu n'est pas seulement consommé sur place, mais il est aussi exporté dans les grandes villes de notre pays qui sont Brazzaville et d'autres grandes localités. Et donc, c'est tout ça, toute cette conversion en termes même de comportement des 18 000 personnes qui sont sur le site qu'il faut susciter. Et nous voulons le faire à travers un certain nombre de projets, non seulement avec le PNUE, nous avons en préparation un projet avec IKI, nous avons en préparation un autre projet avec le PNUD. Donc vraiment, il y a un grand intérêt autour de ces tourbières, des partenaires dont nous voulons profiter actuellement. Merci.
Merci, Roche. Just in the interest of time, if Gabrielle and Jean-Jacques could provide just some very quick responses. I'm sorry, we're just running out of time and we want to get a couple of audience questions. So Gabrielle, over to you for a quick response to that question. On the issue. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Yes, we are doing the same things as was described by my colleagues, in terms of the hard natural sciences and things like that. And these are providing base for decision making. But we are now involved in trying to generate some evidence based for decision making, but coming from the soft social sciences. How do we calculate the benefits that local communities are receiving, are going to receive by the use of this new approach that incorporates the corporate sector and in an alliance with local communities and works with the park administrations in the protected area in Pacayasa Media, and how this can become a new model for peatland management. How can we show that there are benefits that are comparable to the use of these peatlands to extract oil and gas, or to destroy them to build roads from nowhere to nowhere, as sadly happened in the Peruvian Amazon before. The idea is, how do we provide us with hard data that shows that this new approach, this new model can compete.
That's great. Thanks so much for the insight. And just lastly, very briefly, to Jean-Jacques, before we go to some audience questions, any insights from you?
Yes, there's a need of knowledge in peatland management. I think sciences and research can bring us those kind of knowledge. For example, at this moment, we are talking about the COVID-19. I know that we are expecting to the side of DRC that science or research can tell us which kind of zoonose or zoonotic, I don't know what is the best word, can come from the peatland area. So this is why us as a policy maker, there is a need of knowledge in peatland. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jean-Jacques. Very nice. So I want to just thank the panel of policymakers. We're going to move to some. We have a few questions for questions from the audience, and we have a lot. And hopefully we can get through 2 or 3 before we have to wrap up. The first question, and the one that is the most popular, is how to encourage people to stop fully transforming peatlands into other uses, especially using slash and burn practices. And this is a very important question, obviously. Maybe we could have Pa Alu answer that question very briefly from your experience in Indonesia, and then we could have maybe Sue weigh in after that. Pa Alu, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. The big challenge, sometimes I think Professor Sue Page already mentioned, we try to transform this ecosystem from wet to the dry ecosystem, something like that. So actually, we in Indonesia right now we try to to promote, we call that 3 bases of peatland uses. That are first is land base, and water base, and environmental services base. So in order, to reduce all this kind of conversion of peatland by using fires, actually we can promote this kind of water-based livelihood system, like fishery and other type of livelihood that really, use peat in the wet or moisturized condition. And second thing is actually transformation of technology. It's very important, because by new technology that we can maximize the opening of shallow peat, for example, for agriculture without fires. And the last thing I think, because everyone just mentioned that peatland is very important as a carbon storage. So we do need how to take a price on this carbon, to prove it by conserving peatland, conserving carbon, you can get, money out of it. That's very important. So from this carbon, for example, if you can generate money as big or as same level with you converted peat into other type of land uses, I think nobody can, maybe this new kind of option, people can make a choice on it, The problem at the moment is a very limited choice. And there is a trade-off, whether we conserve it with still high property, with people hunger on that peatland, or we make it, in the win-win solutions policy or whatever we call that. Thank you.
That sounds great. Thanks. It does seem like we...
Jeremy,
Jeremy, yes.
Je vais partir malheureusement.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Merci. Okay, thanks very much, Rob.
J'ai une autre réunion.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to just in the interest of time, I think we might have maybe 1 or 2 questions, and I'd love to get everybody's responses, but unfortunately we're a little bit squeezed for time. So the second question that was the most popular from the audience was, agriculture and aquaculture on peatlands and wetlands have also been considered to alter hydroecology. And how do we ensure that sustainable peatland, how can we ensure sustainable peatland agricultural practices? Maybe Sue, can you very briefly provide some insight into that?
Yeah, it's a very good question, because what I've talked about earlier is the fact that actually a lot of the uses of peatlands do rely upon altering the hydrology. So getting the hydrology back to something that's near natural is extremely challenging. And then if we try to, even if we're trying to do some sort of restoration of forest, it's challenging. But then if we try to do that in combination with maintaining livelihoods, then it becomes even more challenging. But I think I think there are ways that we can balance some of these needs and aspirations. And I think we're still really at a very early stage, and polyculture type wet agriculture may offer one route. Personally, I would prefer to see us going much more into thinking about reforestation, maybe reforestation with tree species that can perhaps provide livelihood resources. I do still think, though, as Ibuzuli has said, that there is also an opportunity to combine that with aquaculture, which is so important given the role that fish protein plays in a lot of people's diets in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, very, very interesting thoughts. Thank you so much. And I'm afraid that it's, we could probably keep going, I'm sure, for quite a while, but it's now we're at the 90-minute mark, and so unfortunately we have to wrap it up there. But the conversation can continue in Hoover, so please continue there. And of course, most of us are all available for follow-up questions if anyone wants to reach out to us directly or otherwise in Hoover. Our contacts are there. So a big thank you to everyone in the audience for participating, for your interest. Thank you very much to our esteemed panelists, to everyone who was able to join us from across the world. And also a big thank you to the teams at GLF and C4 and UNEP, especially Diana and Julie and our teams there who helped make this podcast a reality and bring all the great panelists together. So stay tuned for more on tropical peatlands. You can find more at the GPI website, at the ITPC website, which is tropicalpeatlands.org. Of course, c4.org and the Global Landscapes Forum also have follow-up materials from this session. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. So have a great day wherever you are, a great evening, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Yeah.
And thank you, Jeremy, for doing a great job moderating the session.
Thank you.
Excellent.